What is up, my beautiful democracy-loving people? If you are here watching today, that means you and I together have endured yet another week of this chaotic Trump administration. Now, Donald Trump has been in office for about 7 weeks now, which means he's got about 201 weeks left to go. And let me tell you, I am counting down the 1,408 days until we can kick this orange turd straight out of the White House. If you are joining me for the first time, this is the Weekly Roundup. Because I am a small creator that doesn't have all of the time to cover every single story that I would like to, at the end of each week, we gather up a whole bunch of clips together and go through them one by one. Now, these clips don't necessarily hit on any particular theme, but I did find them interesting enough that you guys would probably want to see. And before we go ahead and get started, I just want to say thank you to my existing and my new subscribers. Over the past 28 days, I have more than doubled my subscriber count. It has been absolutely insane. One of my videos took off, and I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you that have decided to join me in this journey. As you know, we are endeavoring to build something here on the left that can adequately push back against the right-wing media ecosystem. So thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for subscribing. And without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at this first clip. Because Donald Trump has been doing this new thing when he gets asked a question that he doesn't like. Now, normally these are coming from people or news agencies that he doesn't like, but go ahead and check out how he responds here.
Mr. President, since you last spoke about it yesterday, some details have come out about your cabinet meeting with Elon Musk and some clashes potentially between Secretary Rubio and Secretary
No
Duffy.
clash. I was there. You're just a troublemaker. And you're not supposed to be asking that question because we're talking about the World Cup.
But
Elon gets along great with Marco, and they're both doing a fantastic job. There is no clash.
But Mr. President, bottom line.
Who are you with? Who are you with?
NBC.
Oh, no wonder.
No wonder. You're with NBC, huh? What is this nonsense? Coming from the man who proclaims to be the free speech warrior. But then he goes and says, well, you're not supposed to be asking that question. That's not what we're talking about right now. You can't ask me that. I mean, this man is just pathetic. Any criticism, any slight pushback at all, and he crumbles like a little baby. Obviously, you and I probably expect this from Donald Trump, but he is getting more overt in this type of behavior. He's getting more bold in this type of behavior, and now he's got control over who gets to come into the press pool. So it's all unsettling times, to say the least. The president should not have this type of control over the press, but this is Trump's America. This is something we're going to have to be dealing with for at least the next 4 years. So buckle up, Buttercup. All right, here's Kevin Hassett. Is that his name, Kevin Hassett? Just talking about how Canada and their fentanyl organizations or operations, this is just pretty wild.
Core fairness issues. Let's just be fair. Whatever you do to us, we'll do to you. That's what he's asking for in April, and it's not a radical idea at all.
But let me ask, because I am confused now about what you're saying about this being a drug war, not a trade war. So let's just take Canada. Mm-hmm. I mean, you said Canada's shipping fentanyl into the United States. I mean, I don't think that's happening.
Sure.
I mean, 1% of fentanyl is being smuggled across the border. 1%. I mean, Canada's not a major source at all of fentanyl in the United States, are they?
Well, yes, they are a major source. And I can tell you that in the Situation Room, I've seen photographs of fentanyl labs in Canada that the law enforcement folks were leaving alone. Canada's got a big drug problem, even in their own cities. Go walk around, Toronto and
Yeah. So that happened. So he's basically accusing Canada of being complicit in fentanyl operations. I mean, this is just absolutely insane. What the real story is here, Donald Trump is not just allowed to unilaterally implement all of these tariffs and whatnot unless he is able to declare some sort of national emergency. And so that is why you keep hearing this story about all of this fentanyl coming across the northern border, even though it only accounts for about 1% or less of the total fentanyl supply that is actually coming into this country. That is why we keep hearing this story. But it is absolutely absurd to try to blame Canada for being complicit in those operations, which is exactly what he just did. This is another example of the choose your own adventure. You can just assert the reality that you want to live in and then try to force everybody to live inside that reality. That is something we went over quite a bit this week, and here's just another example of it. Let's go ahead and move on. Here's Tom Homan saying, of course we can deport legal citizens.
ICE has arrested a Palestinian activist who led anti-Israel, pro-Hamas protests on Columbia's campus. He has a green card. Can you deport a legal immigrant?
Absolutely we can. I mean, did he violate the terms of his visa? Did he violate the terms of his residency here? You know, committing crimes, attacking Israeli students, locking down buildings, destroying property. Absolutely. Any resident alien who commits a crime is eligible for deportation.
Tom Homan, he's just a piece of garbage. Every time he is questioned about whether he can do something, you'll always notice that he will respond with the most extreme thing. But the problem with this particular story and that guy being deported, even though he is a permanent legal resident with a green card who has not been committed of a crime or convicted or accused of a crime, the Trump administration came out and said as much. They said, we're not accusing him of breaking any laws. We're not accusing him of committing any crimes. So they do not have the authority to just go deport legal residents. But that is what Tom Homan is saying. Of course we've got that power. But of course, the choose your own adventure, here it is again. Well, if he did break this law and this law and this law and he went against this and this and this, then of course we can deport him. It just doesn't work that way, folks. This man, as far as I know, hasn't committed any crimes. He hasn't been accused of committing any crimes. But Tom Homan, and the jackbooted thug that he is, yeah, he thinks he can just kick whoever the hell he wants out of the country. Let's go ahead and move on to a more lighthearted clip where Nicole Malliotakis is trying to discuss tariffs, but as you will see here, she is absolutely clueless as to what she is actually talking about.
Target and Best Buy said last week that prices are going up in direct relation to the tariffs. Is that a good thing for your constituents on Staten Island and beyond?
I mean, but the tariffs, the tariffs haven't even gone into effect. They've been postponed. So, you know,
tariffs have gone into effect for China and others. Yeah.
Been in effect.
No, some of the tariffs have gone into effect. Yes.
Well, but not the ones to Mexico and Canada. And the tariffs in China, they were in effect over the last 4 years.
Donald Trump is increasing tariffs on China.
Okay, President Biden actually kept and increased tariffs on China.
Look at the reporter's face. That really kind of says it all, doesn't it? Like, what is this congressperson even talking about? Donald Trump is implementing tariffs. He puts them on again. He takes them off again. But the ones in China are still in effect. And yes, he did raise all of those tariffs. Oh, and yes, he did implement more tariffs. But Nicole Malliotakis apparently has no idea what the hell the Trump administration has actually been up to. So now she's trying to cover his ass without having any basic understanding of any of the facts. I mean, this is just absolutely despicable. This is an elected representative who has no idea what is going on in her economy, what is going on in the Trump administration, and yet she's on TV trying to run defense for the insanity that is the Trump administration. And speaking of insane, here's Russell Vought. See if you can catch the illegal part of what he is saying here.
Now, can you translate the DOGE savings, I'll call them, the budget savings, into actual budget reductions, lower the baseline, bend the baseline lower? In other words, how's that going to work?
Well, we're going to use all of our executive tools to make those savings permanent. We can use rescissions. The president ran on impoundment. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that those are not merely something that goes on a website, but becomes permanent. And we're going to be able to do that. We'll work with Congress to do it, but we're also been aware of the extent to which Congress has had a hard time passing cuts.
We've been aware with how Congress has had a hard time passing cuts. But did you hear what he said before that? Well, the president ran on impoundment. So we can just go ahead and use that mechanism to go ahead and seize funds or stop funds that have been congressionally appropriated. That is what he is saying, and that is illegal. What he is talking about is criminal. And this is what the Trump administration has been doing, and they've been going up to the courts and getting shot down because the president does not have the unilateral authority to just stop funding that has already been congressionally approved by the Congress. Okay? The Congress has the power of the purse. We have gone over this time and time and time again. They write laws, they appropriate funds, it's signed by the president, and then those funds get doled out. But Russell Vought is one of the main proponents for this idea of impoundment. He thinks that the president of the United States is a king as long as it's Donald Trump in office, and therefore he has the power to do whatever they want with the funds that have already been appropriated. What he is talking about is illegal. The courts have said that over and over and over again, and I'm pretty sure that Russell Vought is one of the main architects behind all of the illegal activity that we have been seeing out of this Trump administration. It's absolutely despicable. He was asked about this during his confirmation hearing, and as you can see, they are still following through with this impoundment method, even though it is against the law. Let's go ahead and move on to Don Bacon. He came out, and I wanted to include this clip this week because this is not something we see from Republicans often at all. Most of these people have just removed their backbones and have become completely subservient to Donald Trump. But listen to how Don Bacon here is talking about our role in the world and how we have been treating Ukraine.
We were the leader of the free world, but it appears to many leaders and people all over, to include Republicans in Nebraska, that this administration is walking away from that legacy that was built by Ike Eisenhower and all these presidents, and really a capstone of Ronald Reagan, peace through strength, and building these close alliances. And we are undermining that legacy right now. I'm not interested in a foreign policy that is totally built on realism or transactionalism, where it's just, what do we have in it for us? I believe in having a foreign policy that's a mix of realism, protecting our country, and idealism, where we're the leaders standing for freedom, free markets, rule of law. And we gotta be clear-eyed, but also have moral clarity. Putin invaded Ukraine. He's murdered all of his political opponents. He tried to kill a previous Ukrainian prime minister. He's bombing cities.
It is so refreshing to hear this coming from a Republican. As most of you have seen, Republicans in Congress and Donald Trump himself, even J.D. Vance, well, they just won't even admit that it was Putin who started the war in Ukraine. They either deflect away or they will just go completely insane and they will say, oh, it was actually Zelensky who started that war. Now, this is a Republican. This is somebody who understands how America has worked for the past number of decades to become the number one in all of the world. And now he is now understanding that we are kind of just giving all that up because Donald Trump is just so enmeshed in all of this protectionism. It is an absolute shame what this Trump administration is doing. We are withdrawing from the world. We are ceding all of the power that we have built up over the past number of decades. All because Donald Trump has some twisted understanding of what America should be and is instead just aligning with the axis of evil instead of standing up for our allies like Ukraine. I think it's important that we highlight these voices. We do not get Republicans saying this stuff very often, but if reporting is true, a lot of the Republicans behind the scenes will say stuff like this, but they don't have the backbone to come and say it in public. So I commend Don Bacon for coming out and saying what is true, recognizing what the hell Donald Trump is doing to America, and calling it out in black and white terms, just like he did. Let's go ahead and look at this one last clip here. This is Jamie Raskin, and I just really love the quote from this video. He says, "A rally a day keeps the fascists away.
We are going to continue to participate in all the protests. I was at my 11th protest yesterday at the NIH, and I was at the science rally the day before that. I say the rally a day keeps the fascists away. And we're going to continue to use every lever that we have in Congress in order to stop this chaos and this assault on the rights of the people. And so if we can pull over just one or two Republicans on each bill, that is successful for us. And if we can use the filibuster on the Senate side, that works as well. And one of the key reasons that they're doing everything lawlessly through Elon Musk on this executive end run around the Constitution is not only because they believe they're monarchs and they're kings and they want to move us to a dictatorial techno state, but it's because they can never get this stuff passed in Congress.
I think what he said at the end there was so important. You know, we've got Elon Musk and the Muskrats running around Washington, D.C., shutting down agencies, shutting off funding. And they're doing this. It's all criminal. It's all unlawful. But why are they doing it that way? Even since they control the House and the Senate. It's because they know all of this crazy shit would never pass through Congress. So it's very important that Jamie Raskin points that out here. They are doing this illegally because they couldn't get it done legally. And I know many people have felt a bit frustrated with the Democratic Party, myself included. They have been flat-footed. But there are people out there who are standing up in this moment. And as he said, a rally a day keeps the fascist away. We had a couple videos we went over this week where we've got protests popping up all over the country, and they do make a difference. Jamie Raskin realizes that. He has been joining a ton of different protests, and I think that it is a call to action. If you want to stand up for your democracy, if you want to stand up for your country, if you want to stand up for what is right, get involved in these protests. Get involved in these movements. You just don't know when your protests are going to encourage or give the courage to somebody to stand up against what is going on right now in our federal government. So get involved on the local level. Get involved with mutual aid groups. Get involved with local charities or pro-democracy groups, whatever you can to stand up for your country. And there are people in Congress who are using the tools at their disposal to try to push back. Now, does it feel like enough in this moment? I would say no. But that doesn't mean there has been a lack of trying, because many of people like Jamie Raskin have been trying different techniques to try to push back against this authoritarian administration. So that is the bunch of clips that I had for you at this Weekly Roundup. I think this is the third installment of this particular segment. As I mentioned in the beginning of the piece here, I started this because I'm just a small creator that doesn't have a producer. I don't have a small team that can help me prep stories. And it just takes a ton of time to put together a coherent story that makes sense, that is going to be enjoyable to watch, engaging, all of those things. Just takes a ton of time. So as a way for me to be able to provide some additional commentary on clips that I found interesting during the week, we started the Weekly Roundup segment, and this has been the third installment. So if you guys think or have any suggestions for what I should do differently, any types of clips that I should cover, or any other types of suggestions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. I do read your comments. Otherwise, guys, I will leave it there for now. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share it with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. Like I said, we've got to build something here on the left that can adequately push back against the right-wing media ecosystem and all of this brain rot that currently exists in the MAGA movement. So if you do like what I do here, please do remember to subscribe. If you want to see how Donald Trump and his corruption is just bleeding through right on to the White House lawn, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.